What is up? It is 7:31 Tuesday night on November 16th, which could be my final cast here with Color Cast. I am doing YouTube Live, but this potentially could be my last Color Cast. So just wanted to make that clear before we start, at least for now. I may continue it if they re-up with me, but I guess we'll find out. So leave your comments in the chat. Whoever decides to jump in here, I am ready for everybody. Let me drop some things here in the YouTube channel and see what everybody wants to talk about tonight. I have lots to get to. This here. Give some people a chance to get back in. All right, well, I'm going to get started anyway as we wait for some people. There we go. What's going on, Grandizer? Glad to have you in. I appreciate you jumping in, man. It's a lot of fun. I got lots of topics for you to chew on tonight. If you want me to hit on something, let me know, and I'll definitely talk about that. Let me start with this. College football, pretty straightforward. I'll run through all the topics real quick. So we're gonna hit some college football a little bit, not too much, but a little bit because everything pretty much stayed status quo this week. I'll do a little bit of NFL here. I'll do a lot of NFL, excuse me. We'll talk about the Browns. We'll talk about New England, Tennessee, the Chiefs. We'll get to that. We will get into the Washington football team. Cam Newton returns. We will talk about that. Mark Ingram becomes the all-time Saints leading rusher, which is pretty interesting, even though he wasn't there for his whole career. So we'll talk about that. Oh, you Dolphins fan? Okay, we can hit some Dolphins too if you want. They're not as bad as the Lions, I'll tell you that much, which are basically, and I'll get to this in a little bit about the Lions, they're basically the bad news bears at this point. I mean, that tie that they had with Pittsburgh was laughable. So I will get into that too. Packers look like a Super Bowl team. I'll touch on that. Like I said, the Chiefs are back to being the Chiefs. I think everyone was kind of waiting for them to pop, and now they're back. So we'll talk about that. Rams struggle again 2 weeks in a row for the LA Rams to get blown out, basically. So we'll hit on some Rams stuff. College basketball, I watched a good amount of college basketball this past weekend. UCLA beating Villanova, and I saw Gonzaga absolutely just rip Texas to shreds. So we can talk about that. I think the rankings are pretty true so far. And got some baseball stuff for you. We'll talk about the Rays. Kevin Cash and Gabe Kapler are named managers of the year in the NL, AL, and NL. The Angels finally made a pitching move. Shockingly, they signed Noah Syndergaard today. So at least maybe this is a sign of things to come for the LA Angels. We will talk about that as well. Drop me any chats or anything you want to talk about. If any of those topics or any opinions you have or anything else, I will get to them when I can. We'll start with college football. You know, most of the teams, there really wasn't a lot of action this weekend, except, of course, the annual pretender, Oklahoma, losing to Baylor. I don't think Baylor's got a decent team. But I think people are just waiting for Oklahoma to actually be a real contender as far as the college football playoff is considered. Obviously, they don't have the same teams they've had in the past. But usually Oklahoma is great for the Big 12, but they're not on par with the SEC or the other team, a team that actually plays defense. Oklahoma can score with the best of them. They don't even always use their best quarterback either. They kind of go to their backup guy, and Spencer Rattler is supposed to be the dude. And then, they kind of go to the backup a little bit. But I was glad to see Oklahoma outside the top 10 now, which is where I believe they are. If you look at the other teams in the top 10, Cincinnati's still hanging in there, right? We're looking at Cincinnati. They're now number 5, right? They jumped ahead of Michigan, who's number 6, and then Michigan State is number 7. I don't know. Cincinnati, they're 10-0, and they have SMU coming up, and they got East Carolina after that. So not a tough schedule for them. Michigan at number 6. They barely snuck by Penn State. That was a really weak game. That just shows you how weak, in my opinion, outside of Ohio State, the Big Ten's pretty damn weak. It just is. They don't have a lot. They really don't have any real contenders. Michigan's not going to beat any of the top SEC schools. They're just not. I liked Michigan State, but they're not a real contender. I mean, maybe, but they're not going to beat Alabama or Georgia. That's for damn sure. And I bet you if Michigan or Michigan State played Ohio State, which they probably one of them or both of them will actually, they're going to get they're going to get beat pretty bad by Ohio State. They don't have the athletes. How is it possible, by the way, that Michigan with Jim Harbaugh and Penn State, 2 powerhouse programs, how is it possible that they can't find a quarterback anywhere? Just a legit stud quarterback. Why can't they find that? I don't understand. So that's just something that I've never gotten, especially about Jim Harbaugh, a former quarterback with NFL coaching and playing ties. How is it possible he can't recruit a great quarterback to Michigan, which is a great top 10 program in the country? Some would argue top 5, even though they don't have the wins. But man, I'm just shocked that they can't get the guy in there yet. As Jim Harbaugh's been there enough time to recruit those guys. I watched Georgia this weekend. They had a bad weekend, you could call it, on defense, and they gave up 17 points, the most they've given up all year. Georgia, let me say that again. Georgia has not given up more than 17 points all season, and they've been using a backup quarterback for most of the year too. That's unbelievable. Georgia is by far the best team in college football, by far. I think they beat Alabama. They'll probably beat them. They'll have to beat them twice, once in the SEC championship, and then maybe if Alabama sneaks in the playoff again with 2 losses, they're going to beat them again. I think Georgia, far and away, best team in the country. So they've had an impressive run so far, no question about that. Alabama had scheduled a really weak game this past weekend, New Mexico State. Like, come on, nobody wants to see that. Mrs. Bird Gang, what's going on? Glad to see you. Yeah, I don't know if you want to. Well, I guess your Eagles had a good weekend this past weekend, so I guess you could talk about your Eagles. They needed that win, that's for sure. Let's see. Alabama does have Arkansas this weekend, who is ranked, and they've got some big wins. So Alabama's number 22. Arkansas is number 21. Alabama's number 2. So we'll have to see that. Cam is always my guy since Auburn War Eagle. Okay, yeah, for sure. Cam, hey, I'll get to Cam in a little bit. Auburn, by the way, Auburn did lose. I'm sure you saw to Mississippi State. So Auburn's 6-5 now, I believe. And they don't deserve to be ranked, even though they play a tough schedule. You know, it is what it is. That's the SEC for you. Notre Dame's still in there at number 8. Oklahoma State hanging in top 10 at number 9. Wake Forest 9-1. They're 6-0 in conference. Baylor jumps up to number 11 after their big win. They're 8-2. Ole Miss moved up to number 12 after their big win. And BYU's hanging in there. Wisconsin's up to 15. They're now 7-3. Honestly, Oregon's hanging in there at number 3 because of their win over Ohio State earlier in the year. They do have a ranked Utah team on the road this weekend, so we'll see how Oregon progresses there. They do end, of course, with Oregon State, their in-state rivalry. Oregon's probably going to make it. I don't see anybody derailing their chances, but again, Georgia and Alabama, far and away the 2 best teams in the country. Let's move on to the NFL. We'll start in New England, where the Browns absolutely got crushed by the New England Patriots and the all of a sudden streaking Patriots, by the way. But I'll talk about the Browns first. I don't think they could have looked any worse. Baker is definitely hurt, and he doesn't look good. They got away from their run game. I know Nick Chubb was hurt and Kareem Hunt's hurt, but Dearness Johnson's pretty damn good. I have him in fantasy. That's the reason I know that. So Dearness Johnson can freaking play. He's their 3rd string running back, I guess you could say. He had early success in the game, and then they went away from him. I don't get it. We got both Bird Gangs in here. What's going on? Let's go. Fly, Eagles, fly for you guys. I wasn't going to talk about the Eagles today, but I'm sure you'll want to talk about them. So I could throw some Eagles stuff in there if you want. But yeah, Baker Mayfield's definitely hurt. He every game it seems like something gets aggravated, and you can't blame Odell for this one. So I know Jarvis Landry's been banged up, but man, I don't know. Cleveland just looks uninspired, man. They had that big win last weekend after Odell left, and now they get crushed by New England. So let me move to the Patriots. they are now starting to look like a real contender in the very weak AFC. Outside of what? Baltimore Tennessee, I'll get to in a second. Buffalo, Baltimore, I don't know, Chargers, the Chiefs, I think, are definitely going to be there. They woke up. But New England looks like they're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs if they keep winning like this. Mac Jones looks like, a lot of people are saying, the best rookie quarterback in this class. So even without Damian Harris, the Patriots, their running game is still good. Ramondre Stevenson looked good. Bolden is solid. That defense is always great with Belichick. They started 2-4, the Patriots did, and now they've won 4 straight. So they're starting to figure this out. I don't think Mac Jones is Tom Brady yet, but he looks pretty damn good. So Patriots definitely a team to look out for. I want to look up their schedule real quick. Let me check that out for 1 second here, and I want to see who they got coming up. The Patriots have Atlanta, probably a win. Then they have Tennessee, which is going to be a tough game. And then they play at Buffalo, then a bye. So they got 2 out of the next 3 are going to be real tough games for New England. We'll see if they can keep that winning streak alive going into their late bye week. But yeah, good. New England looked pretty damn good. They were impressive to me. Let's talk about that Tennessee team that I was just referring to. Another big win for them without Derrick Henry. I mean, they beat the Saints, which is, they're this year, the Saints are an average team, right? They just are. You lose Jameis, who starting to come into his own here, but you got Simeon, you got Taysom Hill running the show. But Tennessee went in there and beat them. And the Saints did have some BS calls. Let me just say this. The Saints had some bad calls go their way, go against them, I should say. But there was a good win for Tennessee. They're very well coached. Vrabel, he just gets it. Vrabel's really good situationally. So I like his style. Their defense is starting to really play well. So I wanted to look up and see who Tennessee has coming up outside of New England. Tennessee's going to have Houston. That's a win. At New England, that's a tough game. But that'll be if they win that game. They won up there a couple years ago. They beat good old Tommy, and that was the end of him in New England. Then they have a bye. Then they go Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Miami, Houston. Theoretically, Tennessee could win. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They could probably win 5 out of those last 7 and be right in the thick of the top of the AFC lead. They'll probably have the lead going in if they keep winning like this. So very impressed with Tennessee so far. They look pretty damn good. Let me move on to the Washington football team. They had some bad news. Former number 1 overall pick Chase Young obviously has a torn ACL now. It was confirmed, so he's out for the year. It just doesn't seem like things are going right in Washington until Taylor Heineke and the Washington football team beats Tom Brady somehow this past weekend. I don't know. They played him last year. Maybe it was a revenge from the playoff game they played in last year. But, man, what an impressive win for Ron Rivera and the Washington football team. Tampa doesn't look right. I don't know what's going on with them. They're kind of like the Rams right now, who I'll talk about in a little bit. But Tom Brady hasn't looked great. He's had early interceptions. That seems to be the theme here. Early interceptions, they get down, then he's got to force a bunch of throws. And I don't care what anybody says about Antonio Brown and Gronk, but Brady's not the same without those 2 guys. They both had big touchdowns in the Super Bowl last year. Brady trusts AB and Gronk. So I think they're 2 huge losses. Maybe there's a Super Bowl hangover here. Maybe it's the injuries piling up for them. I mean, who knows? But Tampa doesn't look right. Back-to-back games, and that was coming off a bye as well. So you would expect a Tom Brady-led team to come off very well out of a bye, and they just didn't. They didn't look very good. So, anyways, I don't know what's going to happen with Tampa, but that was a huge random win for Washington. I still obviously they're not a great team, and I don't know how long Ron Rivera can keep this together without. I like Heineke, but without a real franchise quarterback, they're going to have to figure things out. And you lose Chase Young now. I don't know if he'll even be ready for next season, but we'll see. But tough loss on the field, but a true win on the field as well as they beat the Buccaneers. How about Cam Newton coming back to Carolina? That's like I never thought I'd see it. First of all, that's kind of like when Dwight Howard came back to the Lakers for the first time. I was just shocked. Never thought I would see that, right? There's just no way. There was too much bad blood there. They kind of gave up on him. The new coaching staff comes into Carolina, Matt Rule, and he wants his guys, right? They bring in Sam Darnold. They got his other guy, PJ Walker, who can barely move the ball. And all of a sudden, Cam Newton, straight off the couch, as he said, eating bowls of cereal last week, they call Cam Newton. He comes in, first play. Cam patented runs a little QB draw or whatever, a designed run for Cam, runs it in for a touchdown. His first pass of the game, touchdown to Robbie Anderson, who was a forgotten man with Sam Darnold, and he throws a touchdown first play. So anything's better than Sam Darnold. Let me just say that. Anything is better than Sam Darnold because he just keeps turning the ball over. But I don't know. You get Cam back, and they got their defense is pretty good in Carolina, and they just came in and stomped Arizona, which was a complete shock. Obviously, no Kyler Murray. I get that. And DeAndre Hopkins has been hurt. Chase Edmonds has been out. Totally understand all that. But that Carolina team should not be going into Arizona and beating the Cardinals. I don't understand that. Grandizer says Sam Darnold is done in the NFL going the Josh Rosen route. Yeah, at least Sam Darnold got more chances than Josh Rosen, really. I mean, people just give up on Josh Rosen like that. I guess these, I hate to say it as a West Coast guy, but these West Coast quarterbacks, man, some of them are just not ready to play. They're just not. When you play in the Pac-12, it's lesser competition. Outside of Justin Herbert, who clearly is a dude. Darnold and Rosen, man, just overrated, really, I guess you could say. I don't know. Sam Darnold's still really young, but he just makes bad decisions. I've talked about this for weeks with Carson Wentz. They just cannot stop turning the ball over. They just make terrible decisions in crucial situations, man. It's hard to watch. And Sam Darnold, like you said, started out 3-0, man. Things were going great. But clearly Cam has a different juice that he brings to this offense. So very impressive to see Cam hadn't played. This is, the first 9 weeks of the season, comes in and he's a guy. Now, I don't know if the league's going to catch Cam again, and he's not a great thrower. Let's be real. We watched Cam last year in New England. Not a great thrower of the football. He's just not. He kind of has a weird, funky motion over the top. It's not a natural thrower, but he's athletic as hell. So big win for the Carolina Panthers moving forward for them. Just wanted to throw in random stat. Mark Ingram becomes the all-time Saints leading rusher in franchise history, passing, if you remember this name, Deuce McAllister. Deuce. And he was on the call. He's one of the color commentators. So cool to see Deuce McAllister there as Mark Ingram passed him. Alvin Kamara will probably end up taking this record, assuming he stays there for his whole career. But that's hard to do, have the all-time leading rushing numbers if you leave your original team for a little while. I thought that was pretty impressive for Mark Ingram. And I did kind of want to look up his stuff because I want to see how long exactly he was gone for. But I'll try to pick that up in 1 second here. Let me see, Mark Ingram. Yeah, pretty ridiculous, actually. Let's see where he played. He was in New Orleans. Well, I take that back. No, he was in New Orleans from 2011 to 2017. Now, 2018, excuse me. He was with Baltimore for 2 years and then Houston for half of this year. So he did take 2.5 years off before coming back to take over the record. So pretty impressive. But he's been there a long time. So longer than most people think. Mark Ingram's been in the NFL for like 10 years now. So good for him. Let me get to the Lions. If anybody watched that game, Deuce was talking to a fan yesterday. I thought Ricky Williams had better numbers than the Saints. But yeah, exactly. Ricky Williams, man, had all the talent in the world, just didn't have it mentally upstairs. So, but he found better things to fill his brain with, if you know what I mean. I was getting to the Lions. Bad news bears, like I mentioned off the top. Missed field goals, missed interceptions, just terrible, terrible play on the field. Jared Goff is completely, man, you can't even start him. I don't think you can start Jared Goff anymore. They don't have any other options there in Detroit, but what a terrible organization as a whole. You can't beat Mason Rudolph, and the Steelers were basically an average team right now. Mason Rudolph looked terrible too. Both teams tried to give the game away multiple times. You know what? I just knew when Santoso, the kicker for the Lions, came out there to kick. I knew I literally felt it that he was going to miss it, because with the Lions, what can go wrong will go wrong. It's actually unbelievable how bad the Lions are. It's just like you can't put up more than 16 points, and you continually miss field goals. It's just I started laughing when he missed the field goal. I felt bad for the guy, but at the same time, it's just like, this is so Lions of them. Unbelievable. Lions saying on the podcast here, embrace the suck. Yeah. Embracing the suck, like that means like come together and like make it into something. They're making it into nothing. They're taking chicken salad and turning it into chicken S. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing there. There's no offensive identity. There's been no running game. Like, there's nothing going on in Detroit, man. Glad for Stafford to get out of there, but my God, that is a sad franchise. Let me just say that. A terrible, terrible franchise. They're probably the worst franchise in the history of sports. They really are. DeAndre Swift, yeah, nice player. I like DeAndre Swift. I remember last year, first game of the year for DeAndre Swift. He's a rookie. He had that touchdown in the end zone and dropped it to win the game. It is just whatever will go wrong, can go wrong, will go wrong with the Lions. Yeah, chicken salad to chicken scratch. You know what I mean. Man, it's just so, it's hard to, one of my friends is a Lions fan. It's a tough life, man. I would jump ship. Like, I would not be mad at you for leaving that team as a bandwagoner. And let me move to another NFC North team. The Green Bay Packers have a defense now, and they're actually legit without Alexander as well. Russell Wilson looked really rusty and bad. Rodgers didn't look great either. Didn't in practice all week. But when you have to go in November, December, January to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, that is a tough ask, especially with this team. If everybody's healthy, Green Bay is going to be really tough to beat. And that was without Aaron Jones, basically. A.J. Dillon carried the load. They look like a Super Bowl team. So I'm looking at the Packers right now. I don't know that many teams that, maybe Dallas can match up with them. It depends who gets home field. But I like Green Bay. They've done it before. They've beaten Dallas before when they were good. I don't know if anybody's going to stop them except Aaron Rodgers or themselves, really. I was going to look up the Packers schedule here just to see who they got coming up, just to give you an idea here. If they could not run the table, but theoretically they got a pretty, let's see. They got at Minnesota. It's a divisional game. Then they got the Rams coming into town. Not going to be an easy game either. Then they get a bye. Then Chicago, Baltimore, Cleveland, Minnesota, Detroit. It's not the easiest schedule in the world, but they could definitely, like I mentioned with Tennessee, probably win 5 of the last 7 games. Most likely, they could probably do that. At Baltimore is never an easy game. And the Rams, like I said, they might get right after their bye week. But I like the Packers a lot right now. They're going to be big time as we go later in the year. Shifting to the team that is going to see them in a couple of weeks, the Rams. That's 2 weeks in a row, kind of like Tampa, where they just don't look right. They're trying to fit Von Miller into their scheme. They're trying to fit Odell Beckham Jr. into the scheme. Now without Robert Woods, I think people don't realize. I don't think they realize how much Robert Woods did for that team. He did a lot of the dirty work with blocking in the run game as well, and for other receivers. And he was just a good possession receiver too. So Robert Woods is a huge loss for them. And you got to bring Odell, who hasn't had the same amount of targets that he's used to in Cleveland. And now he's going to come here and have to be a guy. I know Van Jefferson's great. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is one of the best receivers in the league this year. But the same thing happened with Tampa as what happened with LA. Stafford, 2 early interceptions. One wasn't his fault, bounced off Higbee. But when teams get physical with them, like Arizona did it, I was at that game. I watched it. They got pushed around. The Niners seem to have Sean McVay's number. Shanahan all of a sudden becomes a genius when he faces McVay, but he can't figure it out against anybody else. I'm not really sure what's going on with the Niners, but they look good. They pushed the Rams around, and the Titans did it last weekend. They took the ball away and they just got after you. And that finesse, that offense, if things are going great, it's great. But when they get pushed around a little bit, they're going to need some time to practice, and I think they're getting a bye week coming up here. So the Rams, I still like their team. I just don't know if they're a true Super Bowl contender, even though they have a lot of names on their roster. Sometimes the names don't equal what the production is on the field. That's pretty much what Odell Beckham is at this point. So I guess we'll see after their bye week. They're at Green Bay, like I mentioned. That'll be a really good game. Let's go to the Chiefs. I didn't lose faith in the Chiefs this year. I don't think most of you probably did. They got back on track. Mahomes looked great. They had these long, sustained drives. They had creative plays. They still featured Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, and they got them the ball, where they needed to. And Kelsey hadn't had a touchdown in a while. It was just time for them to get back to who they are. It doesn't matter who's running the ball there either. And it was Darrell Williams this past weekend. But even if it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming back, the Chiefs look like the Chiefs again. They have 3 straight home games with a bye sprinkled in there. The Chiefs, I think they're about to go on a serious run here moving forward. So I think they're starting to wake up now. I like what the Chiefs are doing, and they're obviously. The Chargers keep S in the bed, and the Raiders are completely lost, who they crushed. So I think it's a Chiefs runaway in the AFC West. I really do. I don't think anybody's going to catch them. They're just now starting to hit their stride. So I'm impressed with Mahomes again. They found out, they remembered who they were. So impressive game for the Chiefs. I did watch a lot of college basketball this past weekend. I saw UCLA beat Villanova. Villanova probably should have won that game, but UCLA, that was a 2 versus, I believe, 4 matchup, or 2 versus 3. Big win for UCLA at home. They're going to be tough to beat. They got everybody coming back this year, everyone back. And Villanova is really good. They're a little smaller than I thought, but UCLA looked really good against Villanova. And then I watched Gonzaga completely dismantle Texas. This kid, Drew Timme, I don't know if you guys have watched him. He was there last year. He's probably going to be the player of the year. He was preseason player of the year already. And he came back, and they got the kid. He hasn't gone crazy yet, but I hope you guys, if you don't know, now you know. Chet Holmgren. This dude is like basically a mix between Kristaps Porzingis and Kevin Durant. He's like a white Slim Reaper, which is one of the best nicknames ever. Kevin Durant didn't embrace it. Hopefully, Chet Holmgren will embrace that name. He's like 7'1", kind of a Porzingis type. But man, that kid's going to be really good. He's just super young right now, but I think he's going to be really good. And he blocks a lot of shots, rebounds. He ain't scared. So I guess, and Duke has this kid, Paulo Banchero, who seems really good. He just got in trouble with Coach K's grandson. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, DWI. Hopefully he doesn't get in serious trouble. But Duke's going to be good as well. But I liked what I saw from UCLA and Villanova, and of course Gonzaga. Texas has a bunch of transfers, so they're kind of. Well, let me see. My color cast is working here. Check. Hello. And then come back. Sorry about that. There we go. Where was I? Oh, sorry. Duke looks pretty good. Banchero looks good. But yeah, I was impressed with the top teams. Texas has a lot of transfers. They're going to figure it out, but they're going to be good at the end as well. Some quick MLB notes before I go. The Angels made an actual pitching move this offseason. What do you know? They signed Noah Syndergaard to a 1-year deal for $21 million. Noah Syndergaard hasn't pitched since 2020 spring training. So basically it's going to be 2 full years since he gets in a game. I don't know what he's got left. He was good on that 2015 team, but it's been a long time since then. We're talking 6 now, going on 7 years in 2022. I like the move because the Angels never get pitching in free agency. And it seems like, hopefully, even though their owner does some sketchy things, they go after position players only. It seems like they're going for it with Trout, Ohtani, Rendon coming back. I would like to see them go for it. You hope they do. With that much talent, there's a window when everybody's still good and Mike Trout's still in his prime. You got to go for it. You just paid him for 13 years? Mike Trout's been to the playoffs 1 time, and they got swept in 2014, I believe, by the Royals. It's talking about the best player, arguably, in baseball doesn't go to the postseason ever, really. It's pretty disappointing. They got to figure it out. And if you remember last year, kind of the notable thing of the draft, MLB draft, was the Angels drafted 20 pitchers in that draft. You get the sense that they're all in on pitching. It's just now you got to get guys that are ready to contribute today. Those kids in the minors aren't going to be ready for 3 to 4 years. You got to get free agents, big money free agents. Maybe Max Scherzer down the road. I hope not, because I'm a Dodger fan selfishly. Maybe a Clayton Kershaw. You need some veteran studs to come in there and pitch and fill out that rotation, because you need it. You simply need it with this much talent on offense. So, the Angels need to do something, and this was the first step in that direction. A couple notes on Manager of the Year. Kevin Cash won Manager of the Year, just announced today, the AL Manager of the Year for the Tampa Bay Rays, and Gabe Kapler, the Manager of the Year for the San Francisco Giants. Of course, they have the best record in baseball. Both deserving. They both didn't get to the World Series, though. If you would have picked before, you would think those two would have made it to the World Series, but they both didn't. And obviously the Dodgers knocked out the Giants, but they both were the 2 best teams. It sucked that they had to meet that early in the playoffs, but they did. But kudos to Gabe Kapler, man. Former Dodger roving coordinator, and then he went to the Phillies, couldn't get it going there, and then he goes to the Giants, and all of a sudden, they got the best team in baseball. And it's going to suck to lose Buster Posey. Let me tell you that. That guy, I think I talked about him last week. Buster Posey, is a huge part of why that pitching staff was so good this year. The way he calls games, the way he frames pitches, just everything, the way he, as a hitter as well, he's going to be very sorely missed in the Bay Area. So we'll have to see what the Giants do next year. But for now, they got the manager of the year. So if anybody has anything else, I will answer some questions at this point of the Colorcast and of my YouTube Live. Doesn't look like anybody is asking anything, but if anybody does have any questions, I'll give you a second to get them in there. I don't know if Grandize are still here or not, but I can get you in there if you have any questions. Otherwise, that will conclude the week 10 of the weekly lives. I have a podcast coming out on Thursday with Dan Epstein. He is a sports writer for the Internet Baseball Writers Association of America, IBWAA. So that will be happening Thursday. I'll drop that episode, Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find me there at Too Tall Sports Podcast on Instagram. You can follow me there or just follow my YouTube channel. You can get me there as well. And just subscribe, and I will be. Thank you very much, Ms. Bergang. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I got a podcast, like I said, Thursday. So just check me out at Too Tall Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys as always. And I'll see you very soon. Thanks a lot.